Thank you very much, Mr. Sean Fouché, who heads our ICT team and platform at the Ministry of National Security. Thank you for your exquisite role as chairman of these proceedings this morning. Your Excellency, Ambassador Peter Cavendish, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the European Union to Trinidad and Tobago. I have not recognized her in person, but in her absence, the very distinguished Honourable Madam Justice Maureen Rajnath Lee, Judge of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Mr. Earl Harris, Assistant Director, Corporate Services, CARICOM IMPACS, and of course, Ms. Nadine Bushell, Assistant Director, Projects of that esteemed organization, and of course, other officials of CARICOM IMPACS present here this morning. Mr. Maurice Sweet, Head of the Public Service, Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Natasha Barrow, and Madam Nataki Atiba Dilchan, Permanent Secretaries of the Ministry of National Security, and of course I recognize equally Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Marine Resources or Fisheries, Mr. Farouk Hussain, all Deputy Permanent Secretaries present, Directors, Heads of the units of the Ministry of National Security, very distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a pleasure to as well join you here this morning at the opening of this very critical national session on cybersecurity sensitization and training hosted by our colleagues, hardworking, contributory colleagues at CARICOM IMPACS in conjunction with our good friend, the European Union, led by His Excellency Peter Cavendish. But if being here this morning is, as I indicated, a pleasure, you can well imagine the joy and the pleasure that I feel in anticipation of the outcome of this workshop, which is designed to make you, to make us, to make Trinidad and Tobago more aware, better equipped to respond to, as individuals, as professionals, as countries of the region, and as a world, better equipped, as I said, to respond to the challenges that beset us. This series of workshops could not be more timely. Critical they are. Threats to cybersecurity, as you would have heard time and time again, and probably experienced, pose a serious challenge to our country's peace and sovereignty, threatening our social and economic well-being. I think it was in 2018 that a parliamentary team on invitation from the University of Cambridge in England was invited there. Of course, I was among them. And we were introduced to the business of cybersecurity. At that time, for me, it was pretty new. And we had several sessions with international organizations at the University of Cambridge. And as part of that project, we visited a place in London that I came to understand was their cyber security war room, where I saw several large screens, and they were able to show us in the moment, as it happened, cyber security threats, cyber attacks on the United Kingdom. I did not understand all of it then as I do now. Cyber attacks on government systems and infrastructure have the potential to cause severe operational and economic damage, as well as hamper the government's ability to effectively deliver services to the population. The recent attack on TSTT bears testimony to that proposition. The recent attack on the NIB, a very important national institution holding data, holding records, and providing benefits and services to all of us, since all of us are mandated under law to participate in that program. Both these bear testimony to the challenges we face. These incidents, and of course of very recent vintage, have contributed to the sense of mistrust, loss of control, and unease among citizens. When people believe that their personal information can be captured by cyber criminals, they lose faith in our institutions and resist all of the good work that many of you exert on a daily basis in leading and championing the need to build a strong and sustainable, resilient platform which supports the activities of this nation. Our efforts, the government's efforts, the establishment of the Ministry of Digital Transformation and its mandate to transform the government portfolio in terms of digitization and digitalization makes us, laudable as that is, necessary as that is, that makes us even more vulnerable to the threats that we are now obliged to confront. And it is not just the state sector, it is the entire country, the entire economy, because we all use data collecting, data storage equipment, whether it's our phones, our laptops, our desktops, systems that we use in the service. So the private sector is also at risk, and the recent event at Massey Chain bears testimony to that. To give you an idea of what we in Trinidad and Tobago specifically face, over the past 5 years, 2019 to 2023 for greater specificity, the national cybersecurity landscape has seen a significant increase in cybersecurity incidents, which have affected various sectors, as I indicated a moment ago. During this period, there were 205 successful cyber attacks reported to the Trinidad and Tobago Cybersecurity Incident Response or Report Team in the Ministry of National Security, 52 of which happened in 2023. This increase is in keeping with the global incident trends and the prominence of cybersecurity as an area of national security concern. I think that bears some emphasis because in Trinidad and Tobago, we have the rather interesting pasha for behaving as though what we experience here is unique to Trinidad and Tobago, happens no place else, and could only happen here. And when I, as a public man, make reference, even the slightest reference to another experience in another space, one is condemned for saying, I don't want to hear about that now. I live in Trinidad, it's only Trinidad I want to hear about. But of course, a lot of these cyber attacks come from outside and involve technologies from outside of Trinidad and Tobago as well. But of course, I have learned that you do what you got to do, smilingly and with passion, and disregard the noise that emanates from time to time. So yes, what we are experiencing is consistent with global trends. And I did tell you, I think it was 2018, when I saw what was happening in the United Kingdom, even at that time, though I did not fully appreciate its impact. Based on the data from our cyber incident report team, during the government's urgent effort to implement a work-from-home technology platform in response to COVID-19, there was an increase by 125% of the successful cyber attacks as compared, and that happened in 2020, as compared to 2019. So the more you make use of the technology, laudable and beautiful and welcome as that is, the more you expose yourself to these risks. Most of the attacks identified were, as we would have heard earlier, ransomware, phishing, and denial of service, where they capture your service and demand things and benefits to make your data, to serve your customers, to serve your nation. They demand that you pay to retrieve that capacity. And all of this is to give you a picture of the importance of the sessions, the workshops that you will be participating in the next few days. It is critical. It is very, very important. Further, to give you a sense of the government's response to this national threat, the National Cyber Risk Assessment of 2021, led by the Cyber Incident Report team that we call TTC-CERT, sought to establish a national risk assessment framework for the assets, resources in critical sectors and organizations that are potentially vulnerable to cybersecurity intrusion and destabilization. I cannot resist a very human desire at this point, not desire, urge, to recognize the recent passing of the head of that unit, Mr. Angus Smith, who, had it not been for his untimely demise, would have been sitting here this morning. And I commiserate with the other members of the team who must feel his absence on a daily basis, as we at National Security more generally do. The project team assessed 183 systems across 40 public sector organizations and identified 22 systems that, if subject to a cyber attack, would have significant and negative impact on our country. So their business is, particularly when issues are reported or in this national assessment using on their own volition, they would identify vulnerability in organizations, in spaces, and make recommendations for its improvement. That is part of the government of Trinidad and Tobago's response to this burgeoning threat. In this regard, I can tell you that efforts are being made and resources are being expended to ensure that this country's cybersecurity position is more robust, more resilient. We have been working with our regional and international partners to review our national cybersecurity strategy. We have a strategy documented, But of course, it's a living experience, it's a living thing, and the work of reviewing and upgrading is an ongoing work, and we collaborate with our international friends. And this session that you will embark upon is an example, an installment in that regard. The advent of artificial intelligence, e-governance, drones, and the recent emergence of autonomous weapons are all current and future ministry imperatives for the defense and security transformation of our national security architecture and practice. And for those who do not know, autonomous weapons are weapons guided by the use of information technology platforms. They don't need no man to do their work. They are controlled autonomously, and they are very present in the world and can appear anywhere at any time. Tax exemptions for companies incorporating cybersecurity software into their security arrangements were offered in the last budget statement and being implemented to the tune of $500,000, so that if you wisely and properly expend money in terms of cyber security to protect your organization, your records, your business, the government, by way of encouraging that, has made a tax exemption of $500,000 available to you. All part of the government's response to this burgeoning threat. Based on the cadre of persons, I am told, attending the impending workshop from across the government, the private sector, academia, and civil society, I know that the discussions will be of high quality, forward-thinking, and of course, acutely professional. The team at CARICOM IMPACS, in conjunction with our partners, including the European Union, have developed these sessions to ensure that we are all well informed, and more importantly, that we are armed and ready intellectually, with passion, and technologically for this fight. Because trust me, ladies and gentlemen, a fight it is. I described to you the United Kingdom had a virtual war room to deal with the attacks in that space. Collaboration with our regional and international partners is critical if we are to win against those who plan to do us harm and to hold our country to ransom. Very often, you hear very glibly, including this morning on our national radio, you may see it on the papers too, individuals threatening to shut down the country. At the drop of a hat, everybody wants to shut down. Can't build a dog kennel, you know. Can't build a scooter, you know. But want to mash up everything, shut down, destroy. Man. Anyway. If they had the technological capacity, they would do it. And therefore, this work, this international and regional collaboration, is very important, as I have overemphasized. We know we cannot do it alone. And this is why we are more than grateful to CARICOM IMPACS. Sir, and more than grateful to our friend, the European Union, led by the very distinguished and pulsating Peter Cavendish. And I say so for good reason. He doesn't only appear in this forum, he appears in every forum, doing whatever he can, representing the European Union here, to support our work in Trinidad and Tobago. And I really do think that both these organizations deserve our applause. I really honestly do. And our appreciation. So we understand the value of collaboration, and I'm very inspired at this because it demonstrates not only our willingness to become stronger and more resilient in the protection of our nation, but it also demonstrates our adherence to the principle of collaboration. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that said, it falls to me finally to wish you and your work session all success. I wish that you as individuals and professionals share all that you have inside of you with your colleagues. And if you would do that, then Trinidad and Tobago will be all the better and all the stronger going forward for it. I thank you.